Okay, friends. So today we are going to see the management interview of Raj Industries. The CEO, Mr. Sashir Joshipura, is going to talk about the future plans of the company. Let's look into the management's interview and the confidence of the management on whether they walk the talk or not. Yeah. So let's look into it. Hope you enjoy the video.
Whether it's more to the back. And frankly, a lot of it is not just rubbish noise. It has the argument holds water purely because of one, the government's efforts, so to say, in trying to push and bring back the manufacturing sector to life. And two, I think what crises do is push everybody in a corner from where the only way is up. So manufacturing certainly seems to be at the forefront of what could drive the comeback for India Inc. And while the PLI incentivized schemes would probably be hog all the limelight, there are a bunch of other pockets which also stand to benefit materially, and the companies are doing some amazing work out there. One such name could well be Praj Industries. And without getting into too much details at the onset, the point that we will try and do is get in Mr. Shishir Joshipura to talk about whether they believe that there is a shift in the growth orbit for companies in their space and Praj Industries itself. Mr. Joshipura, good having you. Thanks so much for joining in. Hope all is safe.
Good morning, Neeraj. Yes, all is safe, and thank you very much for having me on the show. As you mentioned, that with every crisis, also at the end of the tunnel, there's a light, and this is not a locomotive. So, in our case, definitely we are very excited at the future that we see unfolding in front of us. Over the last 18 months or so, we have seen an outstanding effort from the government to actually include biofuels as a significant portion of India's energy mix over a period of time. Starting with the National Biofuels Policy and subsequent announcements that have been rolled over a period of time, including the latest one where we have said that we would like to advance the 20% blending program to 2025. If we look at this whole landscape, we have suddenly opened up the industry for a massive round of investment. And with that investment, of course, the employment and the other opportunities that come, and biofuels especially because they also preserve the environment. They are more inclusive in nature. They include large segments of society, and it has a positive for every stakeholder in one way or another. And I think that's the positive part of it. We are looking forward to very exciting.
Okay. Can I please request you, sir? Can you just lay out for us, because it becomes a bit confusing at times, because we've had this 5%, this 10% blending policy for going for a while, and multiple years have seen reports of or conflicting reports about what's the kind of offtake that has happened, where in the cycle are we nomenclature wise, and where in the cycle are we on a practical basis currently, and therefore what is that scope for the kind of investment that will be done in order to reach this blending of either 10%, 15% or 20% as the case may be, depending one on what's allowed and two on what the actual offtake is. Can you give us some color around this?
Yes, Neeraj, I think this is a brilliant question. So let's understand what's happening. So if we cut back 2 years ago, the blending program was at about 5% blending target at that moment in time. And the constraint was on the supply side. There wasn't enough ethanol available to blend. And I'll tell you some of the reasons behind it. At that time, industry was allowed to produce ethanol only out of what's called as molasses C. After all the sugar has been extracted from sugarcane, what's left is molasses C. And from there, the industry was allowed to extract ethanol. So that was one restriction, that the feedstock itself was restricted. The second was interstate movement of ethanol. It was a locally taxed issue. So then it was moved to GST that allowed free movement across the state borders. And three, if you just reflect, in India, 3 states, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka and Maharashtra, are the 3 major sugarcane growing states. There is minor specks of sugarcane growing in some other states, but generally most of the sugarcane is in these 3 states. That means ethanol was also produced in these 3 states. But we needed to blend it across the country, so that created a logistics nightmare as well. Now you cut back to today, government has freed up the feedstock. They've said, sorry, it's no longer molasses C, you can go to molasses B. Hey, you can even take a sugarcane, create juice or syrup out of it, make no sugar and directly convert it to ethanol. They went one step further. Now this meant that the quantity of production, because roughly speaking, you can produce 8 times more ethanol out of the same sugarcane, same quintal of sugarcane, compared to molasses C coming out of the same amount of sugarcane. So it immediately improved the volume. The second thing that very progressive thing the government did was, but that still didn't solve the problem of 3 states producing the ethanol. So they then came up and announced a policy about grain based. So India has FCI godowns across the country in all the states and several godowns in each state. Each of these godowns have damaged grains, has excess and surplus grain. They don't know where to keep the incoming grains. So there is a major problem of grain management, and a very good way to solve it is to convert that grain, the damaged grain which is not fit for human consumption, the excessive grain that is of no use at all, which will anyway become damaged in time to come, and convert that to ethanol. The government came up with a policy saying, okay, we will also allow you to do grain-based ethanol production. So it further expanded the feedstock basket, because that's the critical bottleneck that has been used. Then the third thing happened was, government also said, all right, so that's on the production side. So we have removed the feedstock side problems. On the project side of the things, and a very, very innovative escrow mechanism was announced for setting up of these plants. The government said that between the oil marketing companies, which will be the buyer of the ethanol, the producer and the bank, they created an agreement and an account structure so that all the money that comes from ethanol sale goes to that account. The banks have a direct lien on that account, so they can get their installment paid or loan paid, and the balance money goes to the ethanol company. Because one of the fear that the banks had that, if we give this loan, it may get diverted to pay farmers past due, etc., and then we'll never see the color of our money at the end of the day. So they have taken away that risk with this mechanism. And there have been several other, an interest subvention scheme was announced that allowed industry to put a project at a very subsidized rate of interest, so that made it more viable. Then on the further to reduce the risk, government also announced a 5-year purchase program for ethanol, which used to run in 6 monthly programs. It is now announced on a 5-year basis. So you already know that for 5 years what they will buy. So it's an open tender. You are a producer, you can go fill it, and then they gave the rates. So every year there's a rate. So rate is not going to be negotiated. It's announced. It was clearly indicated by the government. It's not linked to food prices. They gave clear signal. There was different prices given for different feedstocks. So very progressive policy has been rolled out by the government, which is now incentivizing producers. It is debottlenecking the supply side. And then in the last 2 months, we have seen a very, very major announcement which has created a lot of excitement. Is earlier the plan was that we will go to 20% blending by 2030. Now that date has been advanced to 2025, which means that between now and 2025, we have to create additional capacity of 1,000 crore liters of ethanol production. To put this number in the context, at 5%, we are blending 350 crore liters. Today, the whole country produces 350 crores. And now we are saying we want to add 1,000 crores over the next 4 years. So 3 times the capacity to be added over the next 4 to 5 years compared to what we have today. That's what has created a lot of excitement now.
I get your point. Okay, so let me try and digest this. You clearly stated that the policy intent is there and it's been shown. To the financing bottlenecks, if any, have been resolved to an extent and which will give confidence, and there is visibility of supply. Now, my question to you is, sir, is corporate India or India Inc. Ready to put up this capex? Do they have the balance sheet strength to put up this capex? Because you are a kind of a nodal agency, so to say, if I can call you that. Do you sense that in your order books that conversations about orders and actual orders themselves have picked up in the last 6 months to give you the confidence that things have really changed?
Yes, Neeraj. So I think what's happening is, so one, given this whole set of policies, if you look at the full thing, it's a very viable project to put up ethanol right now. Extremely viable. It's a very high cash flow project. So if very positive cash flow, very, very good cash position for the producers. So I think it's very attractive for somebody to put up this project. I think that's the first requirement, right? If anybody has to put up a project, it needs to be financially attractive.
And you are saying it's financially attractive across all three grades, be it from
Yes,
the final
yes.
piece or from sugarcane juice itself. All
Yes.
three are attractive.
It's very attractive now.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two is by expanding the basket to grain, it's no longer only the sugar mills who are producing the ethanol, or they're the future producers of the ethanol. Now we are looking.
Mr. Joshipura, let's try one more time. You're on mute, sir. So you'll have to unmute yourself first.
Just give me a second. I'll try and get onto another Wi-Fi network so that we don't have this problem. Just hold on.
Okay, sure.
Just a second.
Okay, viewers. So while Mr. Joshipura is doing that, let me just try and tell you how the flow of the conversation might be. What we'll try and do is get a sense from him about the future ethanol producers. We have about 10 more minutes left on this.
Okay, good. So I'm on the connection now, and I hope this is better.
Okay, let's try.
So as I was mentioning, so what's happening is that earlier in the earlier era, only a sugar mill was the natural owner of an ethanol plant, because there was nobody else who had access to the feedstocks. Now with the opening of the feedstock that I described earlier, very clearly it has opened up the market for many more players to walk in as producers, especially the grain-based ethanol. So there are people in India who are currently producing grain-based ENA or the potable alcohol. They are very natural owners for this, for example, for ethanol based on grain. There are infrastructure companies that are in renewable power like solar and wind, and developers for that who are walking in. There are ESG funds who are very keen because this reduces carbon footprint. So they are very keen to be part of this activity. So we are seeing them. Oil marketing companies are thinking, well, maybe anyway I'm going to blend it. And why not I become a producer? So there are different strokes walking in from different vistas of producers. So very different band of producers today compared to what we had, say, just about 2 years ago.
Okay. So the ecosystem seems to be expanding. Where are you in this ecosystem, Mr. Joshipura? Because everybody knows you as the premier ethanol machinery manufacturing company. What is the state of affairs currently? Are you at the pinnacle right now with the second competition way far behind? How is it? And how is the order book? If you will allow me to ask you this question, how is the order book expanded both in terms of the quantum of orders that have come in and the number of customers who are doing that? Since you are saying that the ecosystem of people who are participating right now is expanded.
Yes. So I think what we are seeing, the first sign that we will see and experience is the fact that we will see an increase in inquiry inflow to us. Like people wanting to put up projects will come to us, because it's a long process. After you decide to put a project, it takes almost a year for you to get environmental clearances and other statutory clearances before you can go ahead with building of the project.
Okay.
So we clearly see more than doubling of inquiries at our level today. It's just compared to a year back.
Okay.
So compared to a year ago, I'm now double the number of inquiries that I'm. That's number one. That is number two. For every plant, because of this freeing of the feedstocks, the per plant capacity is also going up significantly. From an average of 60,000 liter capacity plant, 60,000, 100,000, very rarely 150,000. We are now going to an era where people are, in general, putting up 150,000 the minimum, going to 200,000, and even talking 500,000, and in that range capacity. So the plant capacities are going up. That means the operating size is going up. The number of people working are different. So I think very different forces at play, and we are seeing very positive traction on all the lead indicators. We had reported an order book which was 40% higher corresponding to the last year at the end of December, and we don't see any abatement on that. So this is continuing, the journey is continuing. And right now we're just beginning to see the finalization speed pick up. Not many people coming up and saying, because you see, this is also a seasonal, especially sugarcane is a seasonal feedstock. So it will start, the next crushing season will start in October. So there is a rush now for people who want to start in October or November, say, for example. They would like to put up their, if they've got clearances, they are now wanting to finalize the plans for the say next 4 to 6 weeks time.
Are you being modest or conservative when you're saying there is no abatement? Because if what you're saying and if whatever I'm understanding is true, you are not only seeing near doubling of inquiries, which means the number of inquiries like to like has gone up any which ways, but if the size of the plant at the bare minimum is what it used to be as the maximum size, then therefore what will happen to your order book is not just mere doubling, so to say. If
Yes,
like to
you're correct on that.
much more.
That's a good catch, Neeraj. So we are estimating, our current estimate is that this over the next 3 to 4 years for this business, this opens up an opportunity worth about 14,000 crores to us, for us.
Okay.
That over the next 4 years, so the project size will be almost 3 times, 4 times as much because of the other factors that get built on the power plants and the land and the buildings and stuff. But the basic process plant opportunity is worth 15,000 crores as we see it opening up right now for the next 4 years. And the speed of inquiry, the order finalization, the dialogue with the customer, inquiry inflow, the size of the plant, everything is indicating that that estimate is not wrong at all.
Okay. And since we have paucity of time, I'm just trying to get together a few other things. And you are not just doing biofuels and ethanol, right? As I see, you've got a small order from IOC for wastewater treatment as well. So Praj won't be one trick pony, so to say.
No, not at all. We are very focused. So ethanol is one part of our story. There's another one which is, as you mentioned, zero liquid discharge solutions, which is wherein you don't allow any effluent water to flow out of your premises. That solution. We have handled distillery waste, which is among the most difficult waste to handle over a period of time, and therefore we are very confident. And so we have a business unit that looks at other difficult to treat waste. Indian Oil order that you mentioned is part of that offering from our end. So we are very focused on ZLD. There's another interesting opportunity that is emerging on the horizon, and that is around the biogas opportunity. We can actually do a whole program talking about it. But briefly put, government has put up a very ambitious plan, much more ambitious than even ethanol, to build 5,000 gas plants over the next 5 years in the country. And this investment is expected to be at 1,75,000 crores. Okay, the thing is that there is no ecosystem right now in the country for gas dispensation. Because once you produce gas, you have to be able to take it off. You cannot store it somewhere. So that is under construction right now in terms of city gas networks, the dispensation, retailing stations. We will be commissioning our first plant on gas end of April in north of India under this program. And I think that will be the first such plant to go on stream in the country.
Okay. So
which is started from scratch and which is built along this path.
So this 1,75,000 that you say is the size of the overall plant manufacturing size, or the overall business size, and plants would be a percentage of that?
It will take 1,75,000 crore to put up 5,000 plants.
To just put up the plants?
Yes.
And you will be one of the players out there, right?
Yes, as you said, we are very clear that if we do something, we have to be leader by a large margin. So very clearly, we have technology which is already put us in the ahead of the race, because currently we are able to guarantee a yield which is at least 30% higher than anybody else in the field. So that puts us in a pole position to take care of that opportunity as well. But there, I think we need to give about 18 months time frame for this overall ecosystem to develop, the dispensing program, the offtake programs. But very progressive policy there as well under a program called Satat from government. And we are very, very confident that it will be also a very big opportunity that will unfold in time.
Okay. Mr. Joshipura.
There are other businesses.
Sorry, yes, please.
I said there are other businesses in the company. That's the bioenergy part. We talked about ZLD. There are other businesses as well. We serve the pharmaceutical segment through our high purity systems business, which serves only the pharmaceutical logistics chain, full manufacturing chain. And that is also right now, because of the newfound focus on pharma, is finding new opportunities both in India and outside India.
Got it. Okay.
Even within our core business, we are able to go outside and offer some very innovative solution around pharma grade alcohol, for which there is a big demand rising in the world right now. So we're building some of the leading plants in the United States right now on pharma grade alcohol. So,
Mr. Joshipura, what I'll request is at the end of this interview is post your Q4 numbers to give us half an hour to just explain how Praj could be 3 years out compared to what Praj is right now. So you have to promise me a date on that. But just before we end this interview, and I'm taking a smile from you as a commitment that you will come to me at the end of Q4 numbers to talk about this. We don't have to do the interview the same day. I don't really care about first interviews. We should do a good interview. But my final question to you is, would you reckon, in a nutshell, that Praj 3 years out, FY24, will be a significantly different entity on the revenue and the return ratios than what it is currently?
Yes, if all of this that we are seeing now playing out, it will, and we are the leaders in the business. That's a natural outcome.
Okay. Well, this is great to just get a ballpark sense of what you are doing, and you must be doing fantastic work. So I wish you all the best for that. But I look forward to another conversation with you, Mr. Joshipura, at the end of your Q4 numbers release to talk more at length about what the next 3-year trajectory for Praj could be. Numbers, ratios, margins, what have you.
And thank you, Neeraj. We'll definitely look forward to a dialogue with you and see how we can build it from there. I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you so much. Stay safe, Mr. Joshipura.
Thank you. Same to you, Neeraj, as well. And sorry for the...
No, not completely fine.
Which is...
You can always have it.
Thank you.